evening, students. Welcome to the Analyst. This is 12th of October 2023, and we are here to discuss important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now, coming to the table of contents. The first topic which we are going to cover is your UN Security Council reforms. The second topic is your Foreign Exchange Regulation Act of 2010, that is FCRA 2010. Then third topic is related to your mutual funds and what essentially are mutual funds and the working of it. Fourth topic is related to your Central Information Commission. And fifth, last but not the least, is your Information Technology Amendment Rules 2023. So let's start with the first topic. First topic is related to UN Security Council reforms. Now, 3 decades have passed since the debate first started over UNSC reforms, and also there has been an editorial in the newspaper suggesting the impending reforms at UN Security Council. Now, why it is important for our syllabus? First of all, our General Studies Paper 2 consists of important international institutions and agencies, which is why UNSC becomes very, very important for us. Now, let's start and understand what is UN Security Council and what are the issues surrounding it. So you have to understand UN Security Council is one of the 6 principal organs of United Nations. And the main aim of UNSC is to ensure international peace and to ensure security in the entire world. And it also establishes various peacekeeping operations in the entire world. It enacts international sanctions against various countries, and it can authorize military action against various countries. Also, one more thing is that it is the only UN body which can authorize or which is having the authority to issue binding resolutions on the member states, which is why UN Security Council becomes a very, very powerful organization. Now, what is the organizational structure? See, UNSC is having 2 types of members. One is your permanent member, another is your non-permanent member. The P5, that is the permanent 5 members, are your China, France, Russia, UK and US. And these are the 10 non-permanent current members of your UN Security Council. Now, what is important for us to understand is what are the reforms which are needed in UNSC. Now, before understanding the reforms, we need to understand about the issues and the challenges surrounding UNSC currently. So, the first issue is poor and inadequate representation. So, you saw the P5 members, that is the permanent 5 members. Now, you see that the representation of African continent or representation of Asian region or various other regions in the entire world is very, very less. So first issue is poor and inadequate representation, because if an organization is so powerful, is having so many responsibilities in the entire world, it needs to be representative of the entire world. That is why adequate representation is important. So it is a challenge. Second is veto power misuse. Now, one thing you have to understand is that permanent members in UN Security Council are having a veto power. That is, only these 5 permanent members, if they think that this decision is not right, they can veto that decision and that decision will not be taken. So they are having the veto power. Now, there have been misuse of veto power as well. Because when India wanted to become a permanent member of UNSC, China vetoed and China did not allow India to become a part of your UN Security Council. That is the permanent member of UN Security Council, citing variety of reasons. Also, one more thing is that UNSC is not reflective of the contemporary realities. So the contemporary reality of the multipolar world, UNSC seems not reflective towards that, because it is still focusing on dividing the world into P5 and the other members. That is the veto power have-nots and haves. That is those who are having the veto power and the have-nots, those who are not having the veto power. Okay, and another thing is the decision making is undemocratic. Now, according to various experts, international experts, the decision making in UNSC is basically focused on the permanent 5 members, which is why democratic process of decision making is not followed. Not everyone in the UNSC, or let's say in the United Nations, is included in taking very, very crucial and important decisions. So undemocratization is also an issue under this UNSC. Now, what are the various suggested reforms for it? See, first suggested reform is to expand the membership of your UN Security Council. Now, India, Germany, Brazil, and South Africa, that is your group of four, have been wanting to become a permanent member of UNSC, and they are rightfully deserving for that place as well. See, because all of these four nations, they are developing economies. Some are developed, some are developing economies. They are the largest economies in the entire world. They are having good military power as well. They are having good global presence as well. So, in a way, they are global powers, which is why inclusion of them in the P5, that is permanent members who are currently there, is very, very important. So that is one reform which is suggested by a variety of experts. Second reform is to end veto power or expand it. So either you end this concept of veto power, that only 5 members will have the veto power, or you end the veto power in itself. That is, the veto power should not be there, and if it should be there, it should be expanded. So two things, either you end the veto power altogether, or you expand the veto power and also give it to the non-permanent members. That is one suggestion for UNSC. Another suggestion is to bring more transparency and accountability in the decision-making process. Now, this third and fifth one, they are very much related, because if transparency is there, if accountability is there, ultimately you can ensure that the processes of decision-making in UNSC is democratic. That is, it includes all the member countries. It includes the viewpoints, the aspirations of all the member countries in the UNSC as well, not just the permanent 5 members. Also, regional representation. Now, we discussed that African and the Asian representation is very, very less. So these regions also needs to be adequately represented in the UNSC. Plus the Global South, because now since India is the voice of the Global South and India has become a voice of the Global South, we would encourage the Global South also to improve more and more participation in the UNSC, that is UN Security Council. Now, Prime Minister Modi, during the G20 summit, now he also argued about India's unambiguous claim for the permanent seat in UNSC. So again, this was reiterated by our Prime Minister that we are having a claim for the permanent seat at UNSC. Now, one more thing which Prime Minister suggested, that UNSC should become a reflective of the current realities. Whatever current realities are there of the multipolar world, not aligned to one particular country or not aligned to a particular set of countries, but a world which is multipolar and which can take decisions based on its own strategic importance. So, it should be reflective of current realities. That is, UNSC should be reflective of the current realities in the ongoing world order. Adopt to change, otherwise lose relevance. So UNSCC Prime Minister has given an advice to UNSC that you need to adopt to the changes in the global world order, otherwise you will eventually lose your relevance in the world. Now, if you read the editorial as well, in that editorial also it was suggested that reforms in UNSC is like a patient has been diagnosed with a disease and the doctors have basically have a uniform opinion on the diagnosis, but do not have a uniform opinion on the prescription. That is what in the editorial also it was mentioned. And which is why we need to understand that reforms in UNSC, UN Security Council, are very much essential, and it is the need of the hour to ensure UNSC reforms happen in a stable and a very, very growth-oriented environment. Moving on to the second topic, it's related to your Foreign Contribution Regulation Act of 2010, that is FCRA. Now, what is the context? See, recently a FIR has been registered against NewsClick for your FCRA violations. Now, why it is important for us? Again, a General Studies Paper 3, Indian Economy, in relation to it, this FCRA becomes very, very important. So, what we need to understand first of all is, what is this FCRA 2010? Before understanding this, we have to move towards the original Foreign Contribution Regulation Act of your 1976, which was enacted for the first time. Now, it was enacted during the period of emergency, And why it was enacted? Because at that point in time, the government was apprehensive of the foreign powers interfering in the domestic politics of our country. So, due to the apprehensions of foreign interference and to regulate the foreign donations which were coming to the individuals and the associations, this FCRA 1976 was enacted. Now, in 2010, a amended act was there. This amended act basically was enacted to regulate the acceptance and use of foreign contributions to regulate certain individuals, associations, and companies. Now, one more thing is there, it prohibits acceptance and use of foreign contribution for the activities which are detrimental to our national interest. So, the activities which are detrimental to our national interest, if a foreign contribution is happening, if a person, individual, or an organization or an association is taking foreign contribution for any activity which is detrimental to our national interest, those kind of contributions are prohibited under this FCRA 2010. And also it includes any matter related to our internal security and national interest as well. Now, implementation is regulated by the Foreigners Division, that is FCRA wing of Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, this is very, very important. The implementation and the law is regulated by a FCRA wing which is created inside the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, many students would confuse it with Ministry of Finance since it's related to foreign contributions and financial matters, but Ministry of Home Affairs is basically the authority under this FCRA. Now, what we need to understand under this is what are the key features of FCRA. So, first of all, let us understand what is a foreign contribution under this FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. What is a foreign contribution? So, any donation or any delivery or transfer of any item, currency, or security which is made by a foreign source into our country, made by a foreign, these payments, these donations, these transfers made by a foreign source to any certain individuals in our country, to organizations, to associations in our country, those all those donations, all those contributions will come under the ambit of foreign contribution of your FCRA 2010. Now the question is, are the commercial transactions, that is the imports and exports, also regulated under this? The answer is no. So the commercial transactions are not a part of it, but the donations, the delivery or transfer of any foreign items or currency or security made by a foreign source into our country with certain individuals, certain companies, certain association, that is a part of foreign contribution, not the commercial transactions. Now another question which comes is, are the individuals included in this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act? The answer is yes. See, if an individual is having foreign contribution, which is for a definite cultural, economic, educational, religious and social program. Now this is very important. If the foreign contribution is for cultural, economic, educational, religious or social program, then it will be included. Then that individual will come under the ambit of your FCRA 2010. But now the question is, are personal remittances, that is if a person from a family has gone abroad earning income and then the person is sending back the income to his or her own household, will that be included under FCRA? The answer is no. So the personal remittances for family members are not included under the ambit of your FCRA. According to this FCRA, there are two ways to obtain permissions to accept foreign contributions. So there are two ways in which you can obtain the permission from the government to accept any foreign contribution. First way is through registration. Second way is through prior permission. That is, you take prior permission before accepting the foreign contribution. So registration is granted for a period of 5 years. It is very important for us to understand. The registration is granted for a period of 5 years, and prior permission is granted only for a specific contribution. That is, if you specify that this is one odd contribution which I'm getting, for that you can get a prior permission. Otherwise, you need to go for registration, where 5 years registration is given. After that, you need to renew the license. So now let us move on to the key rules of your FCRA 2010. What are the key rules under this? That is very important for us to understand. First is related to the receipt. See, if you are receiving foreign contribution without registration or without prior permission, which are the two ways in which you can basically accept the foreign contribution, which we discussed in the previous part. If you are receiving it without registration or prior permission, it will be considered as an offense. And you can also be fined as well. That is, the association or organization of the individual can be fined as well. And let's say if you have received foreign contribution, to channelize that foreign contribution, you need to have a designated FCRA bank account. That is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act bank account. A specific designated bank account needs to be created. Also, you need to file annual returns with the Ministry of Home Affairs, because Ministry of Home Affairs is the ministry which is regulating this act. So, annual returns need to be filed, and quarterly reports also of the foreign funds received should be given either on their own website, that is the organization's website or association's website, or at a Ministry of Home Affairs website. So you're having two choices: to submit, or basically to show the foreign funds received as a quarterly report. So you can publish quarterly report either on your own website or on the Ministry of Home Affairs website. Now, funds from an entity's FCRA bank account, because if you are receiving foreign contribution, you are essentially having a bank account. So from your FCRA registered bank account, the funds can only be transferred to an entity which is having a FCRA registration, or you need to take prior permission for it. So that is very, very important. Now coming to the FCRA funds, that is the foreign contribution which you receive and which is there in the FCRA account. Now the essential condition is that it cannot be used to invest in the stock market, to invest in the share market. That is, it cannot be used for investment in shares, in stocks, in mutual funds, or any other speculative investments. So this FCRA fund cannot be used for these purposes. And also one more thing is that every office bearer in that organization, or a key functionary, or a member of the entity needs to be registered under FCRA, and also they need to submit an affidavit to Ministry of Home Affairs. So all the key functionaries, all the office bearers, and the members of the entity which is registered under FCRA, they need to provide an affidavit to Ministry of Home Affairs, that is Performa AA. So this is about your FCRA 2010. Now moving on to the third topic, that is for your mutual funds. Now why it is in news? See, there has been a considerable drop in the inflows into equity mutual funds, which is one type of mutual funds, by 30% in your September of 2023. Now, why mutual funds is important? Again, our general studies paper 3, Indian economy, in relation to that, mutual funds is very, very important. Now, let us understand how mutual funds work. So, let's say you are an individual and you are having a lot of money. Now, you want to invest that money into the stock market. And let's take a condition that you are neither having expertise nor you are having knowledge. And let's say you're not even having the time to invest in the stock market. So what you can do? What you can do is you can go to a fund house. What you can do is you can take your money to a fund house. Let's say you're not having that much money to invest. You're having a lot of money, but little bit of it you want to invest. Now what you'll do is you'll take that money to fund house. Now like you, there are many other individuals also. So they all will take money which they are not able to invest themselves. They will take that money, they will pool that money and will go to a fund house. Now fund house, since it's taking money from all the individuals, it will create a pool of the money where the money is collected. Let's say one individual is giving 1,000 rupees, another individual is giving 10,000 rupees, another individual is giving 20,000 rupees. So this fund house will essentially create a pool of all the money. And then the fund house will appoint a fund manager. Now that fund manager will be having the control over that fund, which will be created by all of your money. Because you are doing small investments, a consolidated fund will be created, right? where you are agreeing to contribute. Someone is contributing 10,000, someone is contributing 20,000. So if you're contributing and a fund is created, a fund manager is appointed to oversee that fund. Now, what is the role of that fund manager? The role of the fund manager is to invest that big corpus, let's say 1 crore, or let's say 100 crore, or let's say 200 crore, to invest that corpus of funds into various securities. Securities which can be your stock, which can be investment into bonds, can be investment into gold, any kind of investment that fund manager will do with your fund, right? Which is a consolidated fund made from individuals, right? Now, once that investment is done, the returns will be coming on that investment, because fund manager will be an expert. That is why the person is a fund manager. So the person will be an expert in the stock market, will be expert in the financial market. So once that money is invested and you get the return on that money, that return will be passed back to you based upon your contribution to that fund. Let's say you invested 10,000 rupees. So based on that 10,000 rupees, the return will be given back to you. That is how mutual funds work. So now let's say it's a pool of money. Now, since you would have understood, it works by pooling money from multiple investors. So multiple investors, small investors, they pool money and create a large fund, which is generally managed by a mutual funds company. And then this mutual funds company invests that money into various securities. Now, based on that and based on various other things, mutual funds are divided into variety of types. I hope you have understood what is mutual funds. It is a fund which is created mutually by various small individual investors. And after that, that mutual fund which is created, that fund is invested into various securities. And once the return is there, the return is distributed among all the individuals. Okay, so what are the various types? Now, based on investment structure, there are two types. First is open-ended funds, second is closed-ended funds. The difference is very simple. Open-ended funds are basically where you can buy the mutual funds, sell the mutual funds at any point in time. So you can come into the mutual fund market, go out of the mutual fund market anytime. But in this closed-ended mutual fund, there is a lock-in period. That is, if you buy the mutual fund right now, you will only get the return after 5 months, after 6 months. So you are logged into that particular period. For that period, the investment has been made of your mutual fund. So that are closed-ended mutual fund. Now, based on the asset class, that where this mutual fund is invested, if it's invested into equity, that is the fund manager buys equity, that is invest your money into the share market, that is your equity mutual fund. If the fund manager buys a bond or gives debt of that money, debt to some other person, and then gets the interest, then that is a debt mutual fund. And if it's a combination of equity and debt, based on whichever proportion, then it is a hybrid mutual fund. Now, based on investment objectives, it's divided again into two, that is growth option and a dividend option. Now, in growth option, the return which you get on mutual fund, it is again reinvested into that particular fund, so that it keeps on growing over the years. In dividend option, you basically receive a dividend regularly. That is maybe yearly, maybe quarterly, maybe half yearly, right? So that is your growth and a dividend option. Now, based on portfolio management, now as the name is suggesting, active mutual fund, where active involvement of the fund manager is there, and fund manager actively, that is very regularly, keeps on changing the asset classification of that fund. Let's say for few days the fund manager will invest the money in stock exchange, for few days in debt, for let's say, so changes keep on happening, investing in this stock, investing in some other stock. So active mutual fund. Passive mutual fund is that invested at a one place, only changing when there is a change in index or whenever there is a substantial change in the market. Only then changes happening. So it is basically signifying the quality of continuity, that is continuous return, and continuous and stable return in long term. Okay, now coming to the basis of speciality. So on the basis of speciality, it's divided into 5 types. One is index funds. That means the fund is indexed to a stock index. For example, mutual fund is, let's say, mutual fund is based or made on the composition of a stock index. For example, BSE stock index, or your Nifty, or your S&P. So all these stock indexes are there. So the composition of mutual fund is similar to the stock index. And exchange traded fund, they are similar to the index funds only, but one difference is there, that is exchange traded funds, they are basically traded in the stock markets. That is very important for you to understand. Sectoral funds, as the name is suggested, the mutual funds which are invested only in a particular sector, that is infrastructure, let's say energy, or let's say FMCG. So if in a particular sector the exchange or the mutual fund is basically invested, that is your sectoral funds. Asset allocation funds. Now basically allocation of assets happen in this mutual type of mutual fund. International funds, again as the name is suggested, that mutual fund which is international in nature, that is which includes the contributions from investors from variety of countries, that is your international mutual fund. So these are the various types and the functioning of your mutual funds. Now let us come to the second last topic of today, that is your Central Information Commission. Now what is the context? See, the pendency of cases in the information commissions across India has been a case of concern. And the article is there on it that 3.21 lakh appeals have been pending with the Information Commission, according to a very recent report. Now, in order to understand all this scenario, first of all, we need to know what is the Central Information Commission. Okay, so why it is important for our syllabus? Again, GS paper 2, statutory, regulatory and quasi-judicial bodies have been mentioned there, which is why the Central Information Commission also becomes important. Now the CIC, that is Central Information Commission, it is a statutory body, you need to understand. That is, it is created by a statute by the government. So it is constituted under section 12 of which act? Of your Right to Information Act of 2005. That is why it is a statutory body. So it's formed under section 12 of Right to Information Act. Now state information commissions are also there. Now it is under section 15 of again Right to Information Act of 2005. Now what is the composition of the Central Information Commission? See, essentially it consists of Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioners. So one Chief Information Commissioner and not more than 10 information commissioners. That is the composition. Now coming to the appointment. Now the Chief Information Commissioner is appointed by the President and on recommendation of a committee. Now who all encompasses this committee? First of all is your Prime Minister, who is the chairperson of that committee. Then is your Leader of Opposition, and then is a Cabinet Minister which will be nominated by PM. So all these people will constitute a committee, and based on the recommendation of this committee, the Chief Information Commissioner is appointed by the President of India. So that is related to the appointment. And the Leader of Opposition should be in Lok Sabha. That is very, very important. So the Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha is a part of this committee, not the Leader of Opposition in Rajya Sabha. What is the eligibility and tenure? Again, it is very important. See, eligibility is that the person should be a person of eminence in which fields? Let's discuss. In the field of public life, with wide knowledge and expertise in law, science and technology, social services, management, journalism, mass media, or administration and governance. So a person of eminence, a person with knowledge and experience in all these fields which we discussed, can become a part of your Central Information Commission. And the person can hold office for any term which is prescribed by the Government of India or until the age of 65, whichever is earlier. This is very important. So whichever is earlier. That is a term which can be prescribed by the central government, or till the 65 years of age, whichever is earlier. That is your tenure in the Central Information Commission. Now what is the removal? How the removal can be there of your Information Commissioners and Central Information Commissioner? See, first is if they are declared as adjudicators as insolvent, right? In that case, removal is possible. Then if they are involved in offense involving moral turpitude and they are convicted as well. So in that case, they can be removed. If they are also engaged in paid employment outside the duties of their office. So if they are engaged in any paid employment which is outside the purview of their regular duties of their office, then they can be removed. Or if they are declared unfit. Now, because of reasons such as infirmity of mind or body by the president. Now, there is one more case that in the grounds of proved misbehavior and capacity, in that ground also, they can be removed. Now, but in this case, the president has to refer the matter to Supreme Court for inquiry, and if Supreme Court upholds it, then the president can remove the information commissioner. So that is related to your Central Information Commission. Now coming to the last topic of today, it is related to IT Amendment Rules of 2023. That is Information Technology Amendment Rules 2023. Now again, why it is important? Because there have been concerns raised about the government's fact-checking unit. So issues related to false news and the fact-check units related to this IT amendment has been in news, which is why it becomes important for us. For our General Studies Paper 2 Governance Polity aspect, it becomes important. For our General Studies Paper 3 also, Internal Security aspect also, this IT Amendment Rules 2023 becomes very, very important. So let's discuss what this IT Amendment Rules 2023 are all about. See, first of all, the full name of it is Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Amendment Rules of 2023. Now, essentially, they have been there to amend the IT rules which came in 2021. And all of these rules, they derive authority from Information Technology Act of year 2000. So, IT Act of 2000, that is the main act, the main legislation considering your information and technology in the country. And in relation to this act, various rules have been there by the government, have been put out by the government. One is your IT Rules 2021. Now, amending these IT Rules 2021, the IT Rules of 2023, the amendment rules have come. Now, what is there in this amendment rules? First of all, the thing is that government will have a fact-checking unit. Now, that unit, the main purpose of that unit will be to flag the government-related content, the content which is related to the government, as fake or false or misleading. So they will have the power, that fact-checking unit will have the power to flag a government-related content as false, as misleading, or as a fake content. So they are having the power. And what happens then? The flagged content, which will be flagged by the fact-checking unit, have to be removed by all the intermediaries. That is your internet service providers as well, and the file holding companies as well. For example, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, your services like Airtel, Jio, right, Vodafone Idea, they need to remove the flagged content as soon as possible if it's flagged by this fact-checking unit. Now, if there is failure to comply to this, if there is failure to comply to this particular order, then they will have the risk of losing the protection which is granted to them. That is, they can lose the safe harbor which is granted to them by Section 79 of IT Act of 2000. So if the particular organization or if a particular intermediary fails to comply with this fact-checking unit and fails to remove that content which is flagged as fake or misleading, then that intermediary can lose the safe harbor which they get under your IT Act of 2000. That is Section 79 of IT Act of 2000. Now, what is the safe harbor? That is important because these intermediaries can lose the safe harbor. But what is this safe harbor? See, safe harbor is basically a harbor which is provided to them. It's I would say it is a facility, or it is a protection provided by the government to these intermediaries, which absolves these intermediaries of liabilities for content posted by its users. So if any user have posted content on Twitter, so Twitter cannot be sued for that. That is, Twitter is having a safe harbor. That user can be sued for that. That the case against the user can be registered. The case against Twitter cannot be registered because intermediary is not liable for what a user is doing. But if intermediary fails to comply with the orders of their fact-checking units and fail to remove the flagged content, in that case, that intermediary will lose the safe harbor which the intermediary is getting. Then the intermediary can be made liable for anything which the user do in that particular platform. So that is very important. Now, second thing is related to your gaming, that is online gaming. So the platforms, the online platforms, they can't allow harmful and unapproved online games and even their advertisements. So the platforms cannot allow these things, that is harmful, unapproved games and even their advertisements, online games. Okay. And also these platforms, gaming platforms, they need to register with a self-regulatory body. So they need to register with that, and that body will determine whether or not the game is permissible, if it's permissible to be launched to the public or not. That is one important thing. And also you have to ensure, that is these platforms have to ensure that the online gamings do not involve any sort of gambling and betting elements. That is also very important and peculiar feature of this IT Amendment Rules of 2023. So all of these things encompass IT Rules Amendment Rules 2023. I hope you learned something from this lecture. All the very best to all of you and have a great day. Thank you.